It's been a few months, huh? So, got some really interesting situation going on here. Obviously, April 1st today is the date that I'm recording this video. I'm in California, San Diego County to be specific. So I am part of the stay-at-home order from California. So that's affecting things. We'll talk about that. It's actually the reason for my haircut, which I gave myself earlier today, just a buzz. It was getting too long. And so, you know what? It works. Lots to talk about. I have tons and tons of video that I went through and had to cut down. This is the problem with me not doing more frequent updates. But since the last video that I published, I was at Carlsbad. I've since been at White Sands. I stayed there for a few weeks. I'll cover that in another set of videos. There's just way too much footage for me to try to include here. What I wanted to include on this particular video, because it's been so long, is more recent stuff, my current San Diego stuff. There's a few fun things to talk about there about my travel to and from elevated areas. I've been in 2 different campgrounds in San Diego. We're going to talk about what's next and things that are affecting me here in San Diego, like how I'm living my life. The first campground, I encountered a number of situations. I had planned on being there at, so this is Campland on the Bay. I planned on being there in Pacific Beach, San Diego, for my entire winter stay through the beginning of April. That changed because I didn't really like the campground for a couple reasons, not the least of which was the fact that I only had 30 amp service, which I thought I could get away with. This is an all electric coach, so 30 amp service is, and that means there's no propane on board. So the cooktop, for instance, is electric, right, and that consumes a fair amount of power. The refrigerator consumes a fair amount of power, relatively speaking, to a coach that's not all electric. So I've got some things to talk about there. I want to do a quick update on my Wi-Fi situation and the network attached storage, or NAS, that I have, which is benefiting my entertainment situation, especially right now because the internet is getting a lot slower with the shutdowns and people working from home and staying at home and getting bored and watching video and all that sort of thing. So my internet has gotten quite a bit slower. I did some shared office work, kind of like Downtown Works, but it was a different company, so I'll talk about that, to get me out of the RV and in front of people while I was working, so I could have an actual commute, if you will, even though it wasn't my colleagues. That worked out really well. I've got about 14,000 miles or more on the RV now, and from a vehicle perspective, I'm finally going to talk to you about what my new vehicle is. I have since sold the Jeep, and I have a new car, and you'll see what that's all about next. Stay tuned.
Wanted to provide some footage of me driving. I have the camera on a head strap here, so you'll see me moving my head around as you're seeing now. I'm on Interstate 8 here, driving through the mountains headed towards San Diego, and I encountered some pretty good grades here, as well as some really nice scenery that I thought I would share with you. Coming from Massachusetts, there are mountains there. We just don't see, at least in the Boston area, we certainly don't see views like this. So it's unusual for me to see, and thus pretty to my eyes. So I thought I would share and just talk through some of the topics I wanted to talk through. Watch on the left between these 2 videos for the grade percentage on the GPS. You can see the current grade percentage on the bottom right corner of that GPS, and watch my speedometer. You can see that I'm in the upper 30s there. So just to get a sense of what it's like to drive the 2018 New Air with a Jeep Wrangler behind. So I'm coming from White Sands in this video. This is December 7th or 8th. I arrived in San Diego on December 8th. I made a stop in Yuma, Arizona from White Sands. What was really funny was to go through the the pressure changes when I stopped, especially if the pressure had decreased. In other words, the elevation had increased. Twice I made a complete mess in the kitchen when I opened up my ketchup and my mustard because the pressure change was created a pressure basically inside those containers, and ketchup and mustard went everywhere. So keep that in mind. But that's just a mess. If you have an air mattress, for example, which is the mattress that, like a Sleep Number, which comes with the new Air, I got rid of that. I didn't care for it. You need to make sure you're deflating the mattress sufficiently before you go and drive through the mountains, or you will pop your mattress, or at least create a leak. And that will not be a lot of fun, obviously. So my destination here is Campland on the Bay. That's in San Diego, Pacific Beach part of San Diego, and that was where I originally chose to go. Now, I mentioned earlier that I only had 30 amp service there, and they do have 50 amp service. They just didn't have any available for me, especially for the duration that I wanted to stay there. I was supposed to be there from December 8th through April 4th or 8th, or something in early April. And by the time a month had gone around, I decided that the 30 amp situation wasn't cutting it. I'll talk about that. I'll probably maybe even do a complete dedicated segment for running 30 amp service in the new Air. Even though I shut off the electric heating elements for the hot water and used the boiler, that really didn't work well enough. If I'm running the dryer and the microwave at the same time, I can't use the coffee machine, I can't use the cooktop. I got myself frequently into situations where I couldn't do what I wanted to do. The floor heat, even though it's San Diego, it's still on the relatively cool side here, and having the floor heat set to 1 or 2 was desirable so that the tile wasn't freezing cold. And 30 amps just wasn't enough. So if you're not familiar, 30 amps is versus 50 amp service. It's more like 30 amp service is 100 amp service. So there's a huge difference. And again, I'll get into that when that time comes. So I moved down to Chula Vista, which is south of San Diego proper, to Chula Vista RV Resort, and I have 50 amp service here, and I'm much happier with the site as well. So we'll get into that. So here I've pulled into Campland on the Bay, and I'm going to walk you through disconnecting the Jeep. Even though I don't have this vehicle anymore, I did record this video, so I thought I would share it. So the first thing you saw me do there was pull up the e-brake. You don't want the Jeep running away while you disconnect it. And I had that bag full of all the hardware that I need to connect the Jeep. So you'll see me disconnect these pins, which are locking pins. I had read stories of pranksters pulling the pin out. So even though I always do a walk around before I leave, I decided to have a little extra safety by making sure that those are lockable. For example, if you're boondocking overnight at a Walmart, you don't want to just get out of bed and start driving without making sure something hasn't gone wrong or nobody's vandalized your situation. You certainly don't want something to happen there. So those levers you saw me push down on this particular Blue Ox tow bar relieves the pressure and makes it a heck of a lot easier to disconnect and remove those pins. Those optionally come off what you see me putting in the bag there now. It's a little safer to have them off, so if you pull up to something really close, you don't run the risk of puncturing something. And then there's those plastic caps that just go in there to help protect the inside. That's the emergency breakaway cable, that's the 7-way connector, and then obviously the chains, if you will. So that's it. The Jeep is disconnected, and then it's just a matter of pulling out the cords and whatnot from this side of things, folding up the tow bar and putting the cover on it. So as you can see, it doesn't take particularly long and actually run faster than this normally, but because I'm taking a video and I was narrating it, but I decided to voice over it here, it was taking longer than you see here. So it's actually pretty quick. The reverse, it takes a little bit longer, partly because you have to spend a little bit more time inside the Jeep, putting the transfer case into neutral. I don't show on video here putting it back into two-wheel drive mode. It takes a few seconds. It's really not even worth taking a video of. It's insanely easy to do, and then you're off and away. So extraordinarily simple procedure, and I'm going to be sacrificing some of that ease when I use a trailer, that's for sure. Here you see me actually driving the RV around now. I've detached the Jeep back at the main office, and I'm driving the New Air around the campground. This is, again, Campland on the Bay in Pacific Beach, San Diego. And I wanted you to be able to see the campground a little bit. The sites vary significantly depending on where they are, what you buy. There's varying lengths and whatnot. They all are about the same width. And you'll see that we're packed in like sardines here. And that was part of the reason for me deciding to leave. The campground's perfectly nice. You know, I showed up, the 30 amp connector was very loose. It was a dangerous situation. So I went to the office and told them they need to replace the plug, and they replaced the plug, and they were done in 15 minutes of me reporting it. So that was absolutely amazing service. That was pretty awesome. And they have everything you could possibly need there, from entertainment situation for both adults and kids. They have a bar there, bar/restaurant there. Great place to kind of hang out. It's obviously on the water, but you can see what I'm doing here, right? I'm eyeballing my site. There are cars parked on the side of the road there, which makes things difficult. But you'll also get a sense of what the New Air is capable of here, right? It maneuvers very well, and I was able to pull into this spot. I ended up moving that picnic table off to the right-hand side off the video here, but and I'll share a sort of a photo here next of what I looked like when I was all set up. And I couldn't put my awnings out. It just wasn't I could reach out and touch my neighbor's window from my window. It just wasn't really a pretty sight. So between that closeness and 30 amps, I wasn't happy. So there's my final situation. Jeep parked next to the RV. There's no room for the picnic table. It's just too tight. This is from another site. The water's behind me, looking out into the campground. There's the beach.
Yo!
You were just totally engulfed in the flames. What do you mean what?
He still has his beard.
He still has his beard.
That was one of my neighbors. He likes fires. I may have been drinking that night. So we're just looking at some food that I had at various restaurants in the Pacific Beach area. No shortage of great food. It's downtown San Diego. There are scooters everywhere. This is Little Italy, part of it. I really enjoyed walking around Little Italy. Lots of restaurants and cafes and things to do in that area. I got this for Christmas from my sister. Awesome. All right, let's talk about my new car. Are you ready? I know it's the moment you've been waiting for.
My new car. If you recognize the logo that's upside down, you already know what it is. Tesla Model 3. And the full flatbed open car trailer that I need to pull this behind me. So the Jeep is gone, sold. I'm actually have been a Tesla owner since 2010. And I just had a 1-year hiatus while I was towing the Jeep behind me. I couldn't take it anymore. Went back to Tesla. I actually enjoyed this car more than the Model S. This is smaller, lighter, and I like the way it handles better actually than the Model S. It's also cheaper. So that's what I'm driving these days. Absolutely enjoying it. I've had it since New Year's Eve actually, and I've been waiting to get the trailer before I did any videos. I just received the trailer last week. The shutdown has certainly made acquiring the trailer more difficult. It's actually not ready to tow the Tesla quite yet. I don't have a way to strap that in, but I'm getting close. So, just so you can see the EV portion of having an EV with you at a campground. So this is the cord, charging cord that the car comes with, and on the other end is this control box, and this comes out, if you can see the seam here, this comes out and provides different plugs. And so what I have connected to it now is a 30 amp 120. My RV is connected on the right to the 50 amp, so on the left is the car. So I'm able to charge the car off of a 30 amp 120 circuit, which gives me about 10 miles of range per hour of charge. And you can plug that into a 15 amp 120, a 20 amp 120. You can plug it into the 240 if you want, and I forget what the rate is, but it's a heck of a lot faster than the 30 amp 120. The 30 amp 120 has been doing me more than fine. My car is always full every morning. You'd have to do a heck of a lot of driving for on a daily basis for this to be insufficient. If you were, or if you did happen to do a really long travel day and needed to charge quickly, it's not really an issue. There are plenty of charging stations around, no matter where you are. So I'm in San Diego County, technically in Chula Vista, and I've been here since I think February 14th, maybe January 14th. Now I gotta think about it. I was previously up in Pacific Beach, and I had a 30 amp connection there, a much smaller site, and I just wasn't enjoying that particular site, even though it was closer to San Diego proper. It was technically San Diego Pacific Beach, but this is, I mean, downtown San Diego is 15 minutes, if that, from here, so that works great. So from the trailer aspect, this has, this is an Aluma, that's the brand, 8216, so it's a 16-foot bed. The total length is about 22 feet, so when it's hooked up, it is actually only, I think, 2 feet longer than I was with the Jeep, including the tow bar and all of that. So it was either 2 or 4 feet, not a heck of a lot longer. But with it connected to this 33, technically about 34 feet, and this is a little bit over 22 feet, I end up being about 56 feet long. This site is 56 feet long, and it didn't really quite fit on the site. Things were overhanging, including my door. If the awnings were out, the awnings were kind of hanging out over into the pavement, so I wasn't really comfortable with that. So I disconnected the trailer so I could pull it in over here. I have a hitch. I installed the Eco Hitch, or I had somebody install the Eco Hitch on the Tesla so that I can move the trailer around with the car instead of having to do it with the RV. Obviously there's a hitch on the RV. I don't have the receiver on there yet, or currently. And then as far as connecting this trailer is concerned, I don't have any hard wiring in the New Air for the trailer. So what I chose to do to keep things really simple was to go with this Tekonsha Prodigy RF. So it's a wireless brake controller. And what it does is it listens to the brake signal, and that's either on or off. That's essentially the RV trying to activate the brake lights on the trailer for you. So this guy detects that and knows that you are trying to brake, and by knowing that, and then by sensing the G-forces involved, this will apply a certain amount of brake force depending on the amount of deceleration it's feeling from the RV to the brakes. And you control all of that through this, which just plugs in to the cigarette lighter up front in the RV. That's it. This is wireless. And you don't have to worry about wireless not working while you're driving, something giving out while working, because what this is actually doing is programming this unit. So as soon as you set this to the levels you want, this remembers it. That's it. You could even unplug this and your trailer braking will continue to work the way it needs to work. You just won't be able to see particular values. You won't be able to make adjustments. You won't be able to do manual braking if you need to. But again, that's not terribly important once you've got the setup going. This is important for setup, but beyond that, it's mostly a visual aid, or if for some reason you needed to manually activate the brakes or make an adjustment while you were on the road. So really easy. This is just screwed right in to the trailer. We have the breakaway cable. There's a battery, so that in the breakaway event, in which case the trailer is no longer receiving power from the RV, the battery can be used to supply power for the brakes. So the trailer isn't ready yet because what I have to do is install some track essentially on the bed here that the wheels of the Tesla will drive up onto, and then the straps will go around the wheels all the way down almost to the bed of the trailer and latch in to the track that I install, and then it will go, the strap will go out and latch on there to the trailer as well, and that's what I'll ratchet down to. So I still have to get the track, all the mounting hardware and all that, and if I do it myself, do some drilling, and which will be fun. I was supposed to have all that done by the company that I got the trailer from, but everything's shut down. So I literally got this, it was actually a few days after the stay-at-home mandate came through, and so I picked this up on that following Saturday, and I was the last customer that they delivered to, and then they closed their doors. And I at least have this on site with me now, so because nobody knows obviously how long this is going to last. At least I had the option of having parts delivered to me or something like that and doing the installation myself if I need to, so that I can actually get out of here with my car. But I'm on this location until April 25th, which is 4 weeks from yesterday, so I've got time. So that's my new setup.
So I thought it'd be a good idea to attach the camera to my head and take a bike ride around the campground. This is Chula Vista RV Resort. Turns out that probably wasn't such a good idea. You'll probably get a little bit dizzy watching. I edited out some of the worst head turning because that was pretty bad. But anyway, hopefully this will give you a sense of the campground a little bit in case you're curious about staying here. It's a little bit more expensive than Campland on the Bay, but I'm very happy with the resort, with its location, with the people here. I'll definitely come back. Now this campground is actually going to go away. A new one is being opened up on E Street. This is basically off of, kind of sandwiched between F and J Street, so E Street's obviously not that far. I'm not sure if it's going to be waterfront. I don't remember. The office, which is now closed, has pictures of the development, and the rumors are that some sort of hotel chain is going to come in here. So there's a lot of coastal development happening in the San Diego area, which is affecting campgrounds that are on the water. One of the things that took me by surprise, I'm not sure if this is San Diego County, all California, or what, but you can't stay longer than 90 days without having to leave, and then for at least a day, depending, Campland on the Bay, you have to leave for a day, a full 24 hours, and then you can come back. Chula Vista RV Resort, you need to leave for 3 days before you can come back, and that's so that you don't become considered a permanent resident by San Diego County. So it's not something that the campgrounds themselves are requiring, but something to be aware of. So I'll be leaving just after 90 days and going somewhere else, so not a problem for me. So here's one of the 2 gates that exits the campground so that you can go to the park on the left, which sadly is closed. I wanted to take you on a tour of the park, but you can get a little bit of a sense of the view here. and what's in the park. The park's quite big, plenty of area to walk in and sit down, and yeah, it's fantastic to be next to this park. It's a great way to just kind of get out and get some air and sit in the sun. Or there's also a beach there as well. So this is me taking the street back to the campground. But like I said, I'm happy with this area. I'll come back. Chula Vista is a nice location, and you'll see some tour of Chula Vista coming up. The dog park areas, dog washing stations, public cooking areas, grilling areas. And there's home. So now we are back in my Tesla, and we're going to take a little trip around Chula Vista here. And while we're tooling around a little bit, I wanted to quickly mention what I've done for my Wi-Fi here. I still haven't done anything major. I know I've been talking about doing that. But the built-in Wi-Fi in the MoFi 4500 wasn't really cutting it, both because it's 2.4 gigahertz, which is slower and is overloaded depending on how busy the campground is and all the other 2.4 gig signals. So I wanted to get 5 gig. And so what I ended up doing when I was back in the Connecticut area back home, I'll stop here. Notice we're crossing Route 5 there. I just wanted you to see how close to Route 5 the campground is. And we're about to turn left onto Broadway, just so you can see some of Broadway in basically downtown Chula Vista. You can see what's here. So I took an old Asus. It's not really old, but an Asus router, the one that I was using for my gigabit internet service at home, and I just brought it into the RV and put it in bridge mode and connected it to the MoFi 4500 and shut the Wi-Fi in the MoFi 4500 off. So the Asus is my access point now, and that has significantly improved my Wi-Fi speeds, both for internet access as well as inter-device access. And that becomes important for the network attached storage that I have, which is a Synology. And I mean, this thing could also take its own video, but I'm using the Synology with 4 SSD drives to store all kinds of video content, and especially stuff that I watch over and over again. So instead of streaming it needlessly on Netflix over and over again, I can watch it essentially on my local network over Wi-Fi. So my Apple TV or my Roku just connects directly into the Plex server that's running on the Synology. Absolutely love it. It's also great for general file storage and things like that. So if you've got 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, then transferring lots of large files becomes less of an issue. So it ends up being a great location to store stuff. I actually use it. iMovie, unfortunately, which is what I use to edit my videos, doesn't directly talk to network attached storage, but I can certainly offload some of the stuff that's on my Mac onto the NAS as needed. So with respect to what I was doing from a work perspective, I work remotely. If you're new to me in the channel, I'm essentially I'm in site reliability. I'm a site reliability engineer, which is part of the operations team, software engineering for a web-based internet service. And I've been there for 14 years, and I now work remotely full-time out of the RV. And since I've been doing this for a year and a half, it was, especially in an RV that's only 33 feet long, even though it is just myself, I mean, it has pros and cons to it, right? Since it's just myself, right, I don't see other people as much as I need to, even though I'm actually a pretty reclusive person normally. It was nice to get into a shared office workspace. It's called Downtown Works. It's kind of like a WeWork location, and just have a full setup of like an office cube equipment there. I brought in my equipment, full size monitor and keyboard and all that, actual office chair, and then office amenities. They have a beer keg there, a fridge for you to put your lunch in, and all kinds of things like that. And then it's in downtown San Diego, so you could just pop outside and go grab a coffee, grab take a walk, sit outside, enjoy the weather, whatever it is. So that was a huge mood booster and helped me a lot. Unfortunately, the shutdown occurred not long after that, so I am no longer commuting in. But the commute was, I mean, without traffic is about 12 to 13 minutes. The worst I saw with traffic was probably about a half hour. So I had to set up a parking garage spot there, and then also pay, of course, for the shared space. So I would absolutely do that again. I would be doing that still if it weren't for the shutdown. So what you see me doing here is I'm pulling into a big shopping area that's 5 minutes, 7 minutes away from the campground, and I just wanted to give you a sense of what things look like now. This was probably a couple of days ago, so well into the stay-at-home California orders, and you can see that the parking lot's pretty empty, except for where there's food. So there's a few places with food here, and you'll see some cars there. This particular Starbucks is a walk-in Starbucks, so it's closed, but there's one across the street that's drive-through, which I went to after I took this video, and it had quite a few people in line. But it was actually kind of nice to get out in that respect and get a fancy latte. There's one. If you're a sushi lover, you'll see me turning the corner up here in a moment. There's a place called Uni Sushi around the corner here that they're still open and they're doing pickup. So I have gone there a number of times. They have a ceviche roll. Ceviche is quite popular here. I've certainly noticed that being here in San Diego, spicy, the definition of not spicy or mild is quite different than back home. So there's Uni Sushi on the left there. So mild, I can handle spicy. I just still need to taste the food. I don't like spicy to the point where I'm sweating. That's not my style. But mild here tends to be you're sweating. And ceviche was no exception, but I've come to really enjoy it. So, all right. So the another segment of video that I wanted to show here while I was talking. I'm on my way to the mountains. I should have written down where I went. I actually forgot. I will put a I won't be able to voice it over, but I'll put in a some text here for where I went. I can't believe I don't remember. On this was it's what is today, Wednesday, and I went here on Sunday, just a few days ago. It was kind of an impromptu thing, with the stay-at-home orders. You can still go to the parks and things like that, practice good social distancing, all that, of course. So about 45-minute drive, I was able to get up into the mountains. So obviously, the RV resort is right there at sea level, and I got up to about 5,200 or 5,500 feet or so. And there was actually a little bit of snow on the ground, sort of leftover snow on the edges of the road, sort of thing. I haven't touched snow in a couple of years, so that was that was actually kind of fun to pick up the snow, make a snowball, and whatnot. The temperature changed from 68 at the Chula Vista RV Resort to 48 up there in the mountains, and I wasn't really thinking, and I did not dress appropriately, so I didn't stay for particularly long. But I walked around, and there were plenty of people. You'll see coming up. There's plenty of cars parked on the road, but the other thing I kind of just segmented some of my drive here just from a scenery perspective. Again, some of you might be used to this and might be wondering why on earth I'm showing this. But for somebody who comes from a different geographical location, even inside the U.S., these kinds of views just aren't normal. So I find them to be breathtaking, awe-inspiring. So I thought I'd share them with you. So you can see the route that I took to get there. So while this is going on, I will talk about what was supposed to be next for me. I was actually supposed to be leaving Chula Vista RV Resort originally April 4th, so 3 days from today, as I record this. And I had pushed that out a couple of weeks because my boss was going to come out here and the two of us were going to go to a conference here. That obviously got canceled, but I didn't bother changing my reservation. I just left it as is. And then the situation with my trailer for the car was getting all kinds of screwed up and delayed. So I needed to stay here longer to take possession of the trailer. And now I'm in a situation where I have, if you watch the earlier part of the video, I still need to acquire and install some hardware before I can go anywhere of any distance. Right now, what I do is I'll take the RV somewhere and then take an Uber or a Lyft back. Hopefully I can still do that. Pick up the car and then drive it to its destination. So it's a bit annoying. That's what I'm going to be doing when I switch campgrounds to another California campground that's 15 minutes from here at the end of the month. So what I was supposed to be doing was heading over to Arizona to check out the Grand Canyon. I was going to do that in the spring, hang out there for a little while, and then as summer approached, I would head up to Yellowstone, Grand Tetons, etc. Well, now everything's closed, so I'm back to playing everything by ear and winging it, which is great. I'm used to doing that, so it's no big deal. I mean, I'm not gonna, given the situation, I certainly can't complain. Um, people are a lot worse off than I am, and I'm in a good position now. So it's just gonna put a delay on my plans, and that's fine. So I'm able to work and do what I need to do here. I'm finally able to acquire all the supplies that I need to. Southern California was no stranger to the sort of self-induced panic buying shortages that occurred, paper products and the like. The grocery stores are slowly getting back to order, especially now that they've introduced limits for customers as well as they control the number of people inside the store. It's a really weird phenomenon. I had to go out today and search one more time for a product that I needed and was finally able to find it at a Walmart. And uh, walking through the store, I found myself holding my breath all the time. Just kind of an automatic reaction, especially if somebody walked by me. It's bizarre. There are people wearing face masks and whatnot here. I would say it's less than half the folks that I've encountered. But it's certainly a bizarre situation. But I now have everything that I need. I've actually signed up for you could think of it as a personal chef who delivers 14 meals to me on twice a week. So that really takes care of my primary food intake, and I'm not going to the grocery store. They deliver it to me. I only have to go to the store for other incidentals. Milk, breakfast items if I eat breakfast. So a little bit of a change of a topic here. The video here is obviously sped up, but this drives home the reason for me that one of the reasons I enjoy the Tesla so much. This is a very quiet, serene ride up and down the mountain. Up the mountain, you're not taxing the engine. You don't even know you're going up a mountain. You really don't. Coming down the mountain, equally, you're not riding the brakes, which is bad. And if you know to downshift, that's better for your brakes, but it's also noisy because now your engine's running at a higher RPM. Well, you don't need the brakes for the Tesla since the motor just does regenerative braking on the way down. So it's a wonderful way go up and down the mountain. It's one of the reasons I went out. I had not yet done that in the Model 3, and I hadn't done it in a Tesla for many years. Last time I did that was when a whole group of us went up and down Mount Washington. But I found this to be different. This is a much longer ride up and down. Like I said, it was a 45-minute trip going up 5,000 feet. So this was a nice ride and a nice day, nice way to get out and enjoy and be responsible. I'm going to stop talking at this point. There's about another 10 minutes left in the video. Basically, the rest of this is scenery. So if you want to see the rest of me going up and coming back down, and then towards the end of the video, you'll see me approaching the RV resort. You'll see me coming off the highway and coming into the resort. So if you want to see what that looks and sort of feels like, you can go to that part of the video. But other than that, I'll just leave you with a little bit of background music, and I'll stop boring you with all my chatter. Like I said, I've got a lot of other topics to talk about, like the 30 amp service, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about Wi-Fi networking and things of that nature, the Synology. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll chat soon.